We are live and ready to go. And then just for the record, we do have a translator here today for one of our applicants. So if there are any pauses in the recording, it's for transition.
Good evening. My name is Gary Darnielle. I'm the Salem Hearings Officer. For the record, is 5:30 on August 14th, 2024. This evening, we have two hearings scheduled. The first hearing concerns an application for a conditional use permit to allow a motor vehicle service use for property located at 3393 Silverton Road Northeast in Salem, Oregon. The applicant is Giovanna Casas Reyes. This is case number CU 24-05. The approval criteria can be found in Salem Revised Code 240.005 sub D sub 1 through sub 3. I'll introduce the second hearing after the first hearing has closed. First, are there any objections to the jurisdiction of the hearings official to hear this matter? Hearing no objections, before we get into the testimony portion this evening, I'd like to explain a little bit about the rules that apply to the hearing. The hearings we have scheduled can be characterized as being quasi-judicial and de novo. By quasi-judicial, that means there's certain due process rights that attach to the hearing, such as the right to receive notice, to testify, to an impartial decision maker, to have a decision in writing that addresses findings of fact and conclusions of law. De novo means that you can raise new evidence and argument as long as the evidence and argument are relevant to the approval criteria. The rules of evidence that are found in circuit court don't apply here. Basically, evidence that's admissible is of the character that is commonly relied upon by a reasonably prudent person conducting their serious affairs. I won't accept evidence that's not relevant, not material, is overly repetitive or argumentative. It's important to note that you need to raise any procedural or substantive issues at this stage of the proceedings, or if there's an appeal to the Salem Planning Commission before the Planning Commission. Failure to raise an issue before either of those levels will preclude your ability to raise that issue on appeal before the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals, or NUBA as it's more commonly called. The burden of proof for each factor of the position that is raised needs to be proven by that person that raised the fact or position. The ultimate burden of proof lies with the applicant to show that all applicable approval criteria have been satisfied. The record in this matter includes the planning staff's file, the application and supporting materials, any testimony, either oral or written, that's received at the hearing, and any materials, the written materials that are received before the record closes if the record remains open beyond this hearing. You have a right to request that the record be held open an additional 7 days. You don't need to explain why you want the record to be kept open. If new evidence is introduced after the hearing closes, then there'll be opportunities for all parties to review and comment on that new evidence. You also have the right to request a continuance of the hearing. However, that decision is discretionary with the hearings official. You need to show why merely holding the record open for a certain period of time is not sufficient to address any concern that you might have. In terms of testifying, we ask that you use the podium next to staff, and before offering your testimony, please give us your name, for the record, in case we have to do a transcript of the hearing. In terms of the hearing procedure, and in terms of testimony, we begin with a staff presentation. Following that, there'll be an opportunity for the applicant's representative to testify, and then others who wish to testify in support of the application. Following that testimony, there'll be an opportunity for the neighborhood association, if there is one, to testify. And following that, for people who are opposed to the application, or those who aren't really interested in being in favor of or against, but have questions or would like to make a statement. The applicant at the end of the testimony will be given an opportunity for final summation or rebuttal. Before that happens, I'll turn to staff and ask if staff wishes to address any question or issue that has been raised during the testimony. You have the right to appeal my decision, as I indicated to the Salem Planning Commission. You need to do so within 15 days of when my written decision is mailed. The appeal is de novo before the Planning Commission, so that means you can raise new issues, a new argument before the Planning Commission. Finally, the Salem Revised Code provides that the decision maker disclose any exporting contacts or conflicts of interest. In that regard, I'd like to indicate that I've had no exporting contacts, nor do I have any actual or potential conflicts of interest to declare. At this time, parties may challenge my impartiality, and you reserve the right to make those challenges at any time during the proceedings. Hearing no challenges, I would ask for the staff presentation.
Good evening. I am Jamie Donaldson, case manager for the conditional use permit case number 2405, located at 3393 Silverton Road East. At this time, I'd like to introduce the staff report and its attachments and this presentation into the record.
So accepted.
How do you share it?
Oh.
So that recording stuff.
Sorry about that. Should I start?
Oh, you're good.
Okay. The request before you tonight is a conditional use permit to allow an auto repair shop, which is a motor vehicle services use, in an existing building in the MU3 zone. The subject property is 0.26 acres in size and within the urban service area. It is a corner lot located west of Interstate 5 freeway with frontage along Silverton Road northeast to the south and Hawthorne Avenue northeast to the east, both of which are designated major arterial streets. The zoning map here shows the property is zoned MU3, mixed use 3, represented in purple shading, and is surrounded by other MU3 zoned properties on all sides. As discussed in the staff report, it was discovered through a routine city inspection that a new auto repair shop, Adon's Automotive, had occupied the existing 3,696 square foot building and painted signs for the business without receiving the necessary approvals. Therefore, there is an active compliance case for the property regarding the change of use and occupancy without permits and the unpermitted signs. The applicant is now requesting a conditional use permit to allow the motor vehicle services use to continue to operate on the property and for compliance with the use standards in the MU3 zone. The applicant has submitted the site plan of the existing conditions for the property and is not proposing any changes to the site except for the addition of 2 new bike racks and wheel stops, which was indicated in the written statement. Motor vehicle services are allowed in the MU3 zone with the conditional use permit. The public review process this public reviews process provides an opportunity to evaluate the compatibility of the proposed use with the appropriate development of the surrounding area and to minimize any reasonably likely adverse impacts through the imposition of conditions. As such, staff has recommended conditions of approval related to vehicle parking on site, indoor vehicle repairs, limiting business hours, and the addition of a pedestrian connection, all of which intend to ensure compatibility of the area and minimize the adverse impacts observed on the property in the next few slides. Here we have an aerial photo of the property showing the existing building, which had historically operated as a bakery since it was built in 1969. As you can see in this photo, the proposed motor vehicle services use is a more intense use than the previous bakery, with an increased number of vehicles parked on the site in areas that are striped for ADA access, are not approved parking spaces, and restrict vehicle circulation on site or encroach into neighboring properties. Here we have some photos of the site that were taken on the initial discovery of the operation, including the unpermitted signs painted on two sides of the building seen in both pictures. In the top photo, looking southwest from Hawthorne Avenue, we can see vehicles parking in the ADA aisle and beyond the limits of the parking space to accommodate tandem parking. Below, we have a view looking northeast showing the excessive parked vehicles that block the drive aisle and restrict circulation. Staff has recommended conditions to limit vehicles to only being parked within striped parking spaces, wheel stops, and signage for the ADA space, including no parking painted within the striped access aisle. Here we have a couple more viewpoints showing more vehicles parked on site, even blocking the building entrance in the bottom photo, and repair work taking place in the parking lot in the top photo. Because of this, staff has also recommended condition of approval limiting all vehicle repair to be conducted indoors with no outdoor storage of vehicle parts or equipment, as well as limiting the normal hours of operation between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 p.m., which is consistent with other auto body repair shops, as well as typical limitations for construction sites, in order to ensure that impacts from noise and odors are limited to daylight hours. Staff is recommending conditions just discussed so that the proposal meets one criterion for conditional use, which is to minimize adverse impacts. A second criterion for the conditional use requires that the use be reasonably compatible with and have minimal impact on the appropriate development of the surrounding property. It should be noted that this is in reference to the appropriate development of the area, which would be those uses allowed in the current MU3 zone and not the existing development in the area. As discussed in the staff report, the purpose of the mixed-use zone is to encourage infill development and redevelopment of one of the city's main corridors and to promote pedestrian access through the area. Therefore, staff has recommended that the development provide improvement to the property that would be reasonably compatible with the anticipated uses of the surrounding properties as the area continues to redevelop, which can include retail and office uses, commercial services, and even multifamily residential uses. And to bring the proposed conditional use in alignment with the purpose of the zone, which includes the provision of pedestrian connections. Since the proposed motor vehicle repair shop does not currently provide a means of safe pedestrian access from the public sidewalk to the business, a pedestrian connection would be an improvement to the property that would help ensure it is reasonably compatible with the surrounding area, as customers can drop off their car and walk somewhere nearby to wait while it's repaired. Because the property is on a corner lot, staff recommends a condition to provide one connection to the intersection, which would be sufficient access from the sidewalks along both streets and can be accomplished by painting a striped path through the parking lot with an installation of speed bumps for pedestrian safety. With the recommended conditions of approval, staff finds that the application is in compliance with the approval criteria. No public testimony was provided during the public comment period from the neighborhood associations, surrounding property owners and tenants, or public agencies. However, the applicant's representative has submitted written testimony today prior to the hearing. As such, staff is requesting that the written record be held open to allow staff time to respond to the new submittal. But ultimately, staff would recommend that the hearings officer approve the conditional use permit application, subject to the recommended conditions of approval. That concludes this presentation, and I'm available to help answer questions.
If staff isn't gonna change its recommendations, why do you need the record held open?
Just to address some of the concerns that were presented in the new testimony.
So you're assuming that you don't agree with any of the proposed changes by the applicant to the conditions?
Maybe not any, but definitely not all.
Okay. What does the pedestrian connection look like?
I've actually provided a slide that would sort of provide that. 1 second. Sorry. It could be anywhere, really, but we typically, pedestrian connections are required to each adjacent street. So we were saying it could be just provided to the intersection to accomplish the connection from both streets essentially. And it could just be striped rather than using some other kind of pavement.
A different type of pavement?
That would be an approved way of providing it, but we think that striping it would be easier.
In terms of the hours of operation, you've done a survey of other repair shops in terms of their operations?
Mostly a Google search of repair shops in the area. And then we've looked at other decisions that we've placed the same condition on in the past. Typically, those were 8 AM to 8 PM. So we extended it.
So your Google search showed that those shops had their hours posted.
Yes,
What about in the general area in terms of hours of operation?
I believe Jackson's Auto Body Shop, just to the west here, was about 7 to 5, or to 5, maybe even to 6, but not as long as we've proposed.
What are the Salem's quiet hours, so to speak? Change in the regulations.
I would have to double check on that, but I think we were just trying to line it up with typically what the construction hours are, for noise and odors.
And you done an assessment of what proposed landscaping might cost? Dollar analysis, if you will.
The cost, no, we did say that they didn't need to provide trees. The landscaping is required to be maintained as part of the code in 807.045. So typically, even without this condition, it could become a violation of the property if it's not brought up to a healthy standard.
And what's there now in the
Right now, it looks like it's just dead grass.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This time I would like to hear from the representative.
Good evening, hearings officer. My name is Brittany Randall. For your record, my address is 1720 Liberty Street, Southeast in Salem. Tonight I have an agenda of our presentation. First, we'll do a team introduction for the record. I want to give you project background, go over our conditional use permit request, provide some responses to the conditional use permit approval criteria. As usual, our burden of proof is to meet a preponderance of evidence, and I believe that we easily meet that burden. And then we'd like to go over the contested conditions of approval, summary of our request, and then finally leave some time for questions. We do have some interpretation services happening for our client this evening. So although I know generally my presentation would be limited to 15 minutes, I intend to speak a little bit slower so that those interpretation services can take place, and would ask for some grace if I go beyond the 15. We would like to acknowledge that we submitted additional written testimony to the record. We intend to have our presentation in the record, and hopefully accept that. So again, my name is Brittany Randall. I'm the owner and principal planner of Brand Land Use, and I'm representing our applicant, the property owner, Oregon Alliance LLC, which is managed by Adon and Giovanna. For property project background, I wanted to provide to you some images of what the site looked like prior to our client taking ownership of the site. So what we can conclude from these images is that this corner was really a nuisance to the neighborhood. It was an attraction for nefarious activities and illegal camping. There were broken windows. So it was really a corner that was known for not great things when it was vacant. So I wanted to bring that to your attention and show you what it was prior to my client taking ownership. So again, we're seeking approval of a conditional use permit to allow an automotive repair or motor vehicle service use within the mixed use 3 zone. The use is proposed within an existing building on an established development site with non-conforming development rights granted pursuant to SRC Chapter 270. So in Chapter 270, there are some instances where someone could lose their non-conforming development rights. None of those apply in this case, so we believe that we have non-conforming development rights. And I think this becomes a really important component when we reach the contested conditions of approval portion of our presentation tonight. So we have the conditional use permit approval criteria. There are 3 of them. The first is the proposed use is allowed as a conditional use in the zone. Here we have the use table outlined in pink. We're demonstrating that our use, it requires a conditional use permit. So this condition criterion is met. Criterion number 2 states that the reasonably likely, and we think that's important, adverse impacts of the use on the immediate neighborhood can be minimized through the imposition of conditions. So to understand what impacts the use might have on the immediate neighborhood, we did an analysis of the uses in the vicinity. To the east of the site across Hawthorne Avenue is Cheetah's Cabaret, which is a strip club. You can see here, this is, if you were off to the left, you would be at Adon's Automotive. Across the street is a strip club. Beyond the strip club, illustrated by the yellow dot.
What are the hours of the strip club?
I haven't looked up the hours of the strip club. I'd be happy to provide that.
Probably beyond
I would,
7 or 8.
yes, I assume those activities don't happen during normal hours.
I'm not asking for which.
Okay, me either. I don't know for personal reasons. The yellow dot indicates Spice Video, which is a pornography arcade. That's this establishment here, which doesn't look like this today, actually experienced a fire and is still dilapidated. Probably lost their non-conforming development rights. Beyond the strip club and the Spice video, beyond our site is a marijuana shop. Not depicted in any of these photos. Then we look across the street, so that would be to the south of our site, to the south side of Silverton Road Northeast. And we have the United Rentals, which is a heavy equipment and vehicle rental service company. Their sites are secured with chain link fencing and razor wire at the top. And you will often find parked there heavy equipment, sometimes cranes, most generally forklifts and things like that, things of that nature. And then finally, the only other property owner actually abutting our site on two sides is Jackson's Auto Body. Can't think of a more compatible use than another automotive service provider. So Jackson's Auto Body doesn't do the exact type of work that Adon does, but they are very compatible uses, where one will fix the mechanics of your vehicle and the other will fix when you run into the mailbox. Our site historically had been used as a commercial bakery, where delivery trucks would be on site to load products, which would then be deployed into the area to replenish retailers.
It was a wholesale operation.
Correct, yes. Between the delivery trucks and staff running the commercial bakery, vehicles have been coming and going frequently from this site for decades. The subject site is already developed in a manner which can be utilized by Adon's Automotive and is situated among similar uses or other commercial uses in the area. And we believe the proposal will not significantly change the appearance of the property, except for the really nice repairs that my client has done to the building and the cleaning of the site, which was completed right after they took ownership of it. That's our reasonably compatible meeting criterion number 3.
In your materials, do you go into any detail as to what actually occurs in the repair process? What are the various tools being used, the noises?
No, I don't believe that I go into detail about the noise and tools utilized on the site, although if you are granting the city their request to hold the written record open, we'd be happy to provide more information as it relates to that specifically. But what I do provide to you in the written testimony is what I believe is good evidence about why both the conditions that we would be held to and the surrounding uses and streets are compatible as far as noise and odors are concerned.
Okay, but I can't do that analysis without knowing more about the noise and odor that's generated by the proposed use.
Okay,
And, compare it to Jackson Motors,
yeah,
that sort of thing. So
sure.
that's necessary for me to address that criteria.
Okay, we can provide that. So I guess then we would also agree with staff that we should hold the record open to submit that evidence to you.
We'll talk about open record
Sure.
at the end of.
Sure, okay. Okay, so I'd like to go through the contested conditions of approval for you. All the conditions highlighted in pink are contested. We supplied you with a copy of these materials in order to utilize them during your final decision-making process. You don't feel like you have to frantically take notes. Generally, we believe many of staff's conditions presume a residential neighborhood which does not exist. No reasonable probability or evidence to support a residential shift is provided. So condition 1, We believe the applicant should be given the full timeline for processing a land use application pursuant to ORS, which is a total of 360 days. Generally, staff uses their entire 30 days to complete this review. And a limit of 180 days would not give the applicant sufficient time to respond to an incomplete notice. We saw that in this case, actually, nearly the 30 days was used, and then there were many weeks of back and forth with staff, which is provided in our written testimony to you, in order to reach this point that we are today. So to also be clear, we believe this condition is unnecessary as the applicant has already applied for the class 1 site plan review concurrent to this conditional use permit. The only reason that it's still in process is because this process needs to conclude before that process can.
I don't know if the city can legally limit the processing time, which has been set by statute.
Thank you. I don't think I can say that because I'm not a lawyer, but I appreciate you saying that. Condition 2, regarding the vehicle repair taking place entirely within the building, we agree with that. We agree that that is a good mitigation for abutting properties and a good mitigation should some development change abutting the site in the future. And we also believe that this condition is the reason why many of the other conditions should not apply. Condition 3, we just would ask that the word approved be changed to delineated, just to avoid any confusion, or confusion. Might be nitpicky, but we'd like to just ask for that. And then condition 4, staff provides the following reason for this condition, and we're quoting now out of the staff report. The applicant did not provide current or proposed hours of operation, but it is common to restrict the hours of motor vehicle services through a conditional use permit to ensure that impacts from noise and odors are limited. Staff is proposing hours of 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. A start time of 7 a.m. allows patrons to drop off vehicles before the start of the business day and aligns with the limits for other types of noises such as construction and idling engines that are restricted in the city's noise ordinance, SRC Chapter 93. An end time of 8 p.m. will ensure that any future nearby residential uses will not be impacted by noise and odors late into the evening. That was a quote from the staff report. So I would offer to you, Mr. Hearings Officer, that our office processed a conditional use permit for motor vehicle services used within an mixed-use 3 zone, and a restriction of hours was not an issue raised by staff in that case. Furthermore, that case did have residential uses actually abutting the development site to the south. I submitted that case to you for your review.
Let me say this, the condition isn't internally consistent with the reasons. The way the condition reads, it's the hours are limited to when the business is open to the public. Okay, the business can be closed to the public and repairs can still occur. So the issue about noise and odor doesn't necessarily comport with the condition.
And that you raise another concern of mine with this condition, which is sort of the vagueness of it. Does staff believe that this condition limits any operation at the site? And with there being such a fine line between, you know, code violation and then violating a conditional use permit, thereby having it revoked, which is a right that the city will hold, granted by the code. This is a very concerning condition for us for many reasons.
So are you saying that the use should be allowed to operate 24 hours a day?
I don't think there should be a restriction on their hours of operation. That's what I'm saying. I think it would be unreasonable to assume.
What do they operate now? They operate 24 hours a day?
They do not operate 24 hours a day right now. Giovanna, can you provide me your hours?
No,
So normal hours of operation are currently about 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. If there is an urgency with a vehicle being repaired, you would sometimes find a Dawn there repairing the vehicle into 9 p.m.
Okay,
So staff says it's common practice to impose this condition, but doesn't offer examples of it being common. Staff previously had proposed more restrictive hours of operation, but our office brought to their attention that those hours didn't even align with the city's typical quiet hours. And again, the criterion states the reasonably likely adverse impacts of the surrounding neighborhood. We believe staff has made up a scenario where this intersection is suddenly residential, which it's obviously not. They tried to assert it would be reasonable to see this intersection redeveloped with residential uses, but have provided no evidence of such redevelopment. We believe it would be reasonable to assert the streets, which are both classified as major arterial streets according to the Salem Transportation System Plan, and the Interstate 5 overpass would be more impactful in terms of noise and odor than this small mechanic shop, which is conditioned to complete their repairs indoors. We provided in our written testimony descriptions of these street classifications, including freeway and major arterial, straight from the City of Salem Transportation System Plan, which we believe upholds our claim here that those streets would be more impactful than this use. We do not have any issues with condition 6. In fact, as staff acknowledged, we proposed this in our initial written application to the city. Conditions 7 and 8, we believe our staff's attempts at conditioning the development site, which we are asserting the development site is existing legal non-conforming, and modifications to the development site cannot be required. In our written testimony, we have provided legal precedent and case law supporting this position from the Supreme Court and LIBA.
why don't you expand on your non-conforming use argument? Why? Why is a vehicle service repair shop not a different use than a bake?
It is a different use, but we're conflating use with development. So the applicant is not proposing any modifications, physical alterations to the development site. They plan to utilize the parking spaces as they exist today. They plan to use the structure as it exists today, and they're not proposing any expansion or alteration.
But the odors and the noises and the traffic are different.
Sure, and we believe that those are mitigated through the conditions.
It's not the question whether they're mitigated, the question is whether that gives them non-conforming status.
Well, I don't believe it does according to chapter 2.7. So to lose our non-conforming development rights, there's a short list of ways that you lose those rights. And change of use is not one of those ways.
Per se.
I think it's very clear and prescriptive in the code that a change of use is not giving up a non-conforming development right. We believe the same thing for condition 8. As far as conditions 9 and 10, we don't believe these should be conditions and they should remain as findings because they're advisory. We provide some evidence in our written testimony to you about requirements of the imposition of conditions as it's related in chapter 300-820 sub A. The information that the streets are subject to special setbacks is important, but it's confusing to apply them as conditions of approval. So we believe they should remain advisory. And then finally, condition number 11. We believe that the imposition of this condition would be inappropriate. Generally, when right of way is taken from private property owners, a negotiation takes place between the property owner and the jurisdiction acquiring the right of way. And one item which our client could negotiate is that the reconfiguration of their parking lot and the new location of their ADA stall becomes the responsibility of the city. So this condition would effectively strip my client of those future negotiations, and for this reason, we believe this should be rejected. So to summarize, the applicant agrees with staff that the proposed conditional use permit meets the applicable approval criteria. However, we are asking the hearings officer to weigh the additional evidence provided and advise approval to include only conditions 2, 3, 5, and 6. And I'm available for questions.
I think I've asked all the questions that I could think of at the time. I agree that conditions of approval 9 and 10 could be advisory recommendations. That's traditionally how those sort of issues are handled. Don't you think that the striping of the pedestrian connection has a very definite focus with client safety?
I do, and I believe that we have striping leading from the doorway to the right of way of Hawthorne. So I think that's already met. And what you'll find when you review our written evidence is that the site was completely reconfigured and restriped after the city took right of way from the site. And the city removed a pedestrian connection that existed, as well as speed bumps that existed through the parking lot previously. So the irony is not lost on me that now we're being asked to replace that. Additionally, the landscaped area was improved with that bond project. And it looked on historic photos that there was maybe 1 or 2 shrubs included, and we would also offer to the hearings officer that the landscape area is in the public right of way, it's on city property. Thank you.
Are there others who wish to speak in support of the application?
Good afternoon, hearings officer. My name is Joanna Casas. I am the daughter of Helen Casas Angeles. I just want to say a couple words. Again, I appreciate all the information that was shared today by both sides. I just want to share a little bit about the story of my father. He's a hardworking man. He wants to continue his business, and we're trying the best to do that. So again, thank you for all the information. I just want you guys to understand he's had this business for over 20 years, and the goal is to continue. Thank you.
Are there others who wish to testify in support of the application? Are there any representatives of the neighborhood association present who wish to testify? Does anybody wish to testify in opposition? Does anybody wish to testify as a non-interested party that might have questions or would like to make a statement? Does staff wish at this time to address any issues that have been raised?
Not at this time.
Any final summary? Let's talk about how much time we need to keep the record.
Okay, so we understand that staff would like the record to be held open. I'm sorry, I don't know if you addressed exactly how long.
No, but I think it's typically 7 days.
So we're talking 777.
I don't know if we need the last 7 situation. We don't have any public.
How about 777? 7 days, the city and the applicant can provide new evidence. The second 7-day period, you can address and rebut the evidence of the other party, and then final 1 week, final summary rebuttal by the applicant. Is that agreeable to the parties?
Yeah.
You need more time for the applicant?
I think we do have a scheduling issue through the end of the month. So I think we need to grant an extension to the 120 days. And we may need to make this more like twice as long.
14 days,
Yeah,
1477.
yes.
So record would be held up until August 28th, end of business day. Then September 4th for cross rebuttal, if you will. And then September 11th for final rebuttal if the applicant chooses to take that opportunity.
Right.
And you indicated that a short waiver would be necessary.
I believe just to ensure the comfort of staff with 120 days, we would want to grant an extension, and we're happy to do that.
And how many days of time?
I'd be happy to grant an extension equal to the additional time in the record,
Basically, a month.
a month. Yeah, we'll grant a 30-day extension.
Okay.
And we'll provide that in writing.
Of course, required.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for your testimony. We'll go on to the next hearing. This will change staff. Bishop, are you ready?
Ready?
Ricky, are you ready?
It's me.
Oh, you again.
She gets to cool down, you know, it's really not great after the workout.
Okay, let's begin the second hearing. It concerns the consolidated application for a conditional use permit and a class 3 site plan review for a room and board facility to allow the service of up to 16 people. This facility is located at 1243-45 Peace Street Southeast in Salem. The applicant is the women at the Well Grace House, represented by Ms. Randall of Brand Land Use. And this is case number CU-SPR 24-07. The approval criteria can be found in SRC 240-005 sub D sub 1 through sub 3, SRC 220-05 sub F sub 3 sub A through sub C, SRC to 521.5 sub A, 521.010, SRC 800.055 and .065, and SRC chapter 601, 806, 808, 809, 810. In regard to this hearing, again, I'd like to indicate that I've had no ex parte contacts, nor do I have any actual or potential conflicts of interest. This time, parties may challenge my impartiality. Hearing no challenges, I would like to hear the staff report.
Officer, Deputy Harris Officer, I am Bryce Bishop with the City of Salem Planning Division. I'm here tonight to present the staff report for the proposed conditional use and class 3 site plan application before you this evening for property at 1243 to 1255 P Street for a development or facility otherwise known as the Grace House. So in terms of procedural background, the application was submitted. It was dated on July 23rd. Mail notice was provided pursuant to code requirements on July 25th, posted on the property by the applicant's representative on the 31st. And the 120-day state mandated decision date on this is November 20th. In terms of property location, I have a slide up here. Property is located at 1243 to 1245 P Street. P Street is a local street located between 12th Street and Pringle Road. 12th Street is a major arterial, Pringle Road is a minor arterial, so it is in an area where there's a higher level of transportation, in the area, busy area, but it's also a mixture of different uses. So to the east, you have multifamily residential, to the south, you have single family, residential, and then to the west, you have commercial corridor with both convenience stores, drive-through coffee stands, offices, other personal services. So the area is not a single family residential neighborhood. It's an area that's characterized by numerous uses. And that is reflected both on the comprehensive plan map and the zoning. So on the slide here, we have the comprehensive plan map, and it shows that entire block from 12th to Pringle is designated commercial on the Salem area comprehensive plan map. Properties to the south, they include multifamily residential and commercial. To the north, it's commercial. So again, you can see a varied land use pattern in this area of the city. Corresponding zoning for the area is the property is zoned commercial office, CO. The rest of the eastern 2/3 of the block is also zoned commercial office. You have commercial retail along the 12th Street to the west, and we have a mixture of industrial commercial to the northeast, multifamily residential to the south. So again, a very varied zoning and land use pattern and use pattern in the area. So looking at the property itself, it's 0.36 acres in size. It has the existing facility here. The property is outlined in white. The existing facility, as identified in the staff report, has been serving 5 people since 2013. Without incident, the application here is only for interior improvements to the building to allow up to 16 women to be housed in the facility. And the women here are single women without dependents. And in terms of the site, there is the existing facility, there's existing several outbuildings, sheds, and other structures that facilitate use of the property. And in terms of natural features, there are trees on the property, which are significant and then impacted by the proposed development. Nothing is proposed on that side of the building. There is a creek, Clark Creek, which is to the north of the property on the abutting land to the north. There are, while the portion of the recreating corridor of that creek would extend onto the property, there are no trees or vegetation proposed to be disturbed, so there's no issues with compliance with that. And the site is flat, so there are no landslide hazards present. And here's a few site photos, as indicated in the applicant's written statement. One of the things that helps to minimize the impacts of this use if there were really to be any, because it's really just people living in the house. Is that there's mature vegetation all the way around, so you see mature trees along the street, hedges and other vegetation along the perimeter. So this is looking on Peace Street to the north. You can see it's very kind of obscured there from the street. And then if you're looking, to the northwest from Peace Street, the property is generally located here in the right arrow, again, a low edge here, in a very intrusive, fits into the neighborhood. And this is looking to the northeast, from Peace Street. So again, doesn't stand out, it just blends in, and the existing facility has been notified for over 10 years. So in terms of the applications, there's a conditional use permitting and the site plan review. As identified in the staff report, the proposal does meet the conditions as indicated by the applicant and we concur with staff. And it hasn't had an issue with the compliance. It's a slight expansion of the number of people, just a little bit more than a residential facility would be allowed. It's a licensed residential facility, it's not. The maximum number of people that could be allowed through the conditional use permit process would be 75 in this zone. And again, it's not a residential zone, it's a commercial office zone. And the only condition that we really had was not really related to the conditional use permit at all. It's just the site plan review component of the building. Whenever you change a use and intensify use, and there's more bicycle parking spaces required, and the existing number of spaces is not conforming, you have to bring the correct bicycle requirement up to the current standard. So based on our off-street parking chapter unit says, the use would have to have a minimum of 4 spaces. So that's the only condition that we're recommending.
Does the city consider this a change in use or just an intensification?
It's an intensification and a change of use. The change of use is needed, for the site plan review. That's why they're doing the site plan review, because they're changing the use of the existing facility. Their previous facility was approved as a residential care facility back in 2013, and it's been operating, I guess more like a room and board, but yes, we're looking at it as a change of use. They're further classic site plan review is required, and they're increasing the number of people in that triggers the conditional use permit.
Right. I guess I have my problem differentiating what a change in use is and an intensification of use.
Well, if you were to really look at it, it was a duplex, and it got a residential care facility conditional use permit back in 2013. It was, there were no permits that were pulled, to change it from a duplex to that. So really, it's been a facility operating 5 women, and not, I guess, they had approval to be a residential care facility. So to go to the detail of the changing from us, I say was kind of wrong to a residential or to a room and board, so 6 people.
Okay.
And then, yes, site plan review meets all the applicable standards of the code as identified in the staff report, with the exception of bike parking, condition that, if that's the recommended condition, bring that up. And properties within the Morningside Neighborhood Association, and so was provided to the Neighborhood Association. It received no comments either prior to the staff report being available for leading up to the hearing tonight. The property is not a bank homeowners association, and we did not receive any public comments. So based on that, we would recommend this officer approve the request subject to the condition identified in the report.
Now is the time for the applicant's representative. Non-Brittany.
Good evening, Mr. Hearing's officer. My name is Shelby Kazar. I am the project manager with Grand Land Use. Address for the record is 1720 Liberty Street Southeast, and I'm representing the owners of the subject property being discussed this evening. The applicant would like to provide services to a total of 16 women within the commercial office zone, which restricts the number of people that may be served to 5 or fewer without a conditional use permit. We believe there is sufficient evidence within the submitted written narrative and Bryce's detailed staff report and presentation explaining how the approval criteria have been met. Therefore, we would like to provide more background on Grace House and the services that they provide. Women at the Well at Grace House has a detailed website outlining what services they provide so that women in need can easily apply online. They have been doing this for more than 10 years, with their mission being to provide refuge, support, hope, and love to single women without dependents in a faith-based shelter, and to remove the obstacles of homelessness by empowering women to achieve and maintain a safe and self-sufficient lifestyle. Grace House has a track record of success that demonstrates why they are needed within the community. The flourish rate presented is calculated by the percentage of women that Grace House has served since 2016 that have graduated from their self-sufficiency program and have found a safe and healthy lifestyle that they are able to lead on their own. Their case management is tailored to the goals and circumstances of each individual that they serve. They are currently able to assist an average of 20 women a year. It is reasonable to assume that with the approval of this conditional use permit, that the number of women they help each year could triple. We agree with staff's proposed condition of approval due to the increase in people to be served with the approval of this conditional use permit. In our findings provided within our written narrative and Bryce's staff report, a majority of the individuals served at Grace House do not own a vehicle, which means an increase in alternative modes of transportation, including bicycles. We believe this is a valid condition to impose on a proposed expansion of an existing use. And I'm here for any questions.
What sort of services do the women receive? Are they assisted in obtaining employment in the community?
I believe so. Their website has a lot of more details. I should have included that, but they do help women find jobs. There's a 6 to 9 month that self-sufficiency program that they do. And it helps them create that more self-sufficient lifestyle and then move on to being able to live on their own and have a job.
Right, I'm just looking for the external impacts from adding 11 additional women. And it means 11 more people will be taking the bus or riding a bicycle or an Uber off the site, back the site. They go to medical help or a job opportunity or something like that.
Yeah, for that short period of time until they graduate from the program and then move on to their own living situation.
Is there a finite length of the program or does it vary by individual?
That is a good question. I think it varies by individual. Their website just indicated between 6 and 9 months. So I think the 9 months would be the longest that they've had someone stay there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to leave your final written argument? Would you like to make a final written argument over the next 3 days?
Wave.
Okay. I don't see anybody else in the audience. The staff have anyone?
No, we do not hear, so
No, something. Well, it's my intention, obviously, to approve the application for both the conditional use permit and site review. By happenstance, I have a draft decision right now and can be able to get it done. So, if there's nothing else before the hearing's official, and I assume all of these materials will be on the website and available for review. Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.